the best cocktail in the world is worthless. Hello and welcome to the BartenderHQ.com podcast with me, David Eden-Sangwell, and on this podcast we're bringing together a few of the different threads that we've talked about in previous shows, about a little bit of marketing stuff, a little bit of understanding your guests, understanding people's needs, and let's just get straight into it. Now, yes, it's a provocative title. The whole point of that is to make people pay a little bit of attention to whether they're doing the right things for their guests. Number one, you have to think to yourself, are you making drinks with flavours that your guests actually demand? Now, it's very, very easy in cocktail bars, especially in high-end bars and places where you're trying to make a name for yourself, to create drinks with outlandish ingredients, with really weird flavours and things like that. But there's a reason that a lot of the drinks that people love and keep coming back to order again and again are as popular as they are. It's because people really like them. So it's really important to make sure that even if you're going to put these kind of weird and wonderful drinks onto your menu, that you've got those safe options there for your guests who don't want to be adventurous necessarily every single time they go out for a drink. As I say, there are certain flavour combinations that are classics, and they're classics for a reason. So, one of the cocktails that I posted about today was actually the Woo Woo, and I know it's not anyone's favourite cocktail probably in the bar industry. However, it's super quick to make. It means that guests aren't waiting long at the bar. It also means that, you've got that mixture of the peach schnapps, you've got vodka for strength, and then you've got cranberry juice for dryness. So actually it's quite a well-balanced drink. It might not be the most complex flavours in the world, but if you use a great peach liqueur, you're actually going to get a really nice tasting drink. What I'm saying here is basically don't try to use crazy ingredients in every single drink just to demonstrate how innovative and how cool your bar is, because that's not necessarily what your guests are looking for. They're looking to come in for an experience and to have great service and great hospitality and have a great time in a place with a great atmosphere. Now the next subject is, let's assume that you've got this awesome drink, you've got awesome drinks on your menu. Does your menu actually communicate them well enough that your guests can understand what they're going to get? Now, there's a lot of flavours out there and a lot of ingredients these days that your guests just will not recognise. And people get put off quite often by things that they don't know. As I mentioned before, people don't want to be adventurous every single time they go out for a drink. Quite often people want to go out to relax, or they want to go out for an event, or they want to know a little bit more about the drink than the ingredients list. So if you're using ingredients, for example, I've put in the notes tonka beans. Tonka beans have a kind of vanilla style flavour, so I posed the question, why don't you use vanilla instead? And people like Sam have said basically it's not exactly a vanilla flavour, but that's a pretty close estimate. They prefer the flavour of tonka beans, but it's important then that, because if you don't know what a tonka bean is and what that flavour is, then you've got to include those kind of descriptors so that your guests have a clue about what the drink is going to taste like. It's also important to understand that sometimes a combination of flavours might not taste the same way that people expect, so maybe it's more important to describe the overall flavour of the drink rather than the individual ingredients. One more factor that's really important to consider when you're looking at how things are described on your menu is what kind of glassware does it come in? Is the drink straight up or frozen or long or short and boozy? It's really those kind of factors that quite often will make more of a difference to your guests and their decision making than actually what the ingredients and the flavours of the drink are. So let's assume you've got a decent menu. Can your bartenders actually go through these drinks and understand those flavours and communicate them well to your customers too? So your bartenders are there as a great resource for your guests. It's really important that the bartenders are going to be able to understand all of the flavours. They're going to understand if your guests... They give a lot more kind of detail. So if your guests like a certain drink, the bartenders should be able to recommend something else from the menu or off menu for that guest. Something else that they would enjoy based on what the bartender already knows about their tastes. It's also important when guests have questions about the flavours of a drink that the bartenders actually know a little bit of background about those ingredients, whether it's, if it's lemon and limes, that's absolutely fine. Everyone kind of knows the difference between those from a guest point of view and from the bar. Although guests probably wouldn't be able to tell you if they were blind tasting which was lemon and which was lime juice, but that's not as much of an issue. But things like if you're using exotic ingredients or you're using a strange combination, for example, if you're using something, I don't know, creamy and fizzy at the same time. If you're using really strange combinations of flavours and combinations of ingredients that wouldn't necessarily go together normally, then it's important that your bartenders can kind of describe how they're going to work as a collective. And also being able to cross-promote and recommend something else for their next drink and their next drink, and kind of give them a bit of a progression of flavours, maybe moving from quite mild drinks to something that's a little bit more punchy in the flavour side of things. What all of this comes down to, though, of course, is that you need to have drinks that your guests actually want to drink, and not drinks that you've put on your menu purely to show off, or you're trying to win awards on how original you can be, how out there and how edgy you can be. Those things are not important to actually running a bar properly and making it profitable so that you can keep running it for years to come. It's very much kind of self-congratulatory if you're putting together a drinks menu that is kind of focused more on bartenders than it is on the guests that are walking through your door. Unless, of course, you're running an industry bar and all of your guests are intended to be bartenders too. So when it comes to actually people coming through your door, how are you attracting them? Number one, if you've got this awesome drinks menu, which this is kind of our premise here, we've got this awesome drinks menu, you need to be taking pictures of it regularly, you need to be taking pictures of your drinks as they go out for service, and probably getting a professional photographer in as well to do you some kind of pillar content to go on your social media. But I am a massive fan these days of, if you've got the time and you can physically do it, snap pictures of pretty much everything as it goes out from your bar and just throw it on like an Instagram stories kind of thing, so you can actually have this massive content of just seeing drink after drink after drink after drink that all look awesome going out to the tables in your restaurant or bar. Now, I think that could be something that keeps your bartenders on their toes to make sure that they're going to keep garnishing everything as it should be, but also it generates you just a lot of content, and it kind of encourages your guests to do the same thing and saying, look, we're down for social media, take pictures as much as you want, because if you're not down for social media, you're probably going to struggle these days to actually get enough people through the doors to keep your bar going. There will be exceptions to this, of course. There's always bars that can kind of run just on kind of word of mouth, like genuine word of mouth, people talking business. However, it's few and far between these days. Social media is the water cooler of our society. It is where people talk about things. It is where people find out about where their friends drink and where the cool places to go and all this sort of thing. So it is absolutely vital that you have a social media strategy and you have a real focus on it, and a focus on getting your guests to actually post on there and talk about your venue on the internet. Because if you're not on the internet, you're basically disappearing by the day. A little bit of a different podcast today for you guys. It seemed a little bit more structured to me when I was putting it together. I don't know if it came across as natural as normal. I didn't script it, but I was kind of working off some notes, which I don't normally do. What did you think of today's podcast? I would be interested to hear your comments. Either tweet me at BartenderHQ or hit me up in the YouTube comments down there. And I'm also trying to get more people to actually subscribe on the YouTube channel. So if you enjoy our content and you have time, head over to bartenderhq.com/YouTube. That will take you directly to our YouTube channel, and hit the subscribe button and you will see our stuff as it comes out. Thank you very much, guys, and I will see you on the next BartenderHQ.com podcast.